the major problem with the Western rubrics or standards of assessment. Because you measure our learning, measure our ways according to your ways of thinking. So we don't really think in that straight linear way. And I think that's why I struggled in systematic theology. I found it too abstract. It's abstract, I could not relate it to my experience because it's just too dead, too abstract, the propositions. And oftentimes, that's the language of your studies, of your papers. It's too formal. But why? So it's the Western rubric of assessment of learning.
This is Out of the Margins podcast.
The podcast space, especially in the Christian world, is saturated by Western voices. But if we want a diversity of thought to face the future together, we need to step back and hear voices from out of the margins.
Here, we will be offering insights from experiences and perspectives from the majority world. My name is Edgar.
And I'm Simon.
And on each episode, we will be bringing to you our conversations with pastors, leaders, and scholars from the majority world.
This podcast is brought to you by Young Langham, Australia. Okay, and welcome to another episode of the Out of the Margins podcast. How are you today, Edgar?
I'm doing great, thank you. And you, how are you going with the wedding preparations? For those who don't know, Simon is getting married.
Yes, I'm very excited, and the wedding preparations are going very well. Thank you.
That's good to hear. What are we talking about this on this episode?
So I had the absolute delight to talk with Dr. Joanna Feliciano. She's a Langham scholar who talked to me today about a new way to think about demonstrating one's expertise when candidating for a PhD. So ever since academia began, the main way to get a PhD was to do a research essay. Now, that's a very Western concept, and it's not necessarily the best way for somebody to show that they are an expert in a topic. So particularly, Joanna has talked to me about how a portfolio might be a better way, particularly in theology, to show a broad knowledge base on a topic. So it means that people from the majority world for whom a research essay might not be the best chance of success for them can actually demonstrate that they are experts on the topics that they're discussing by approaching it from a different direction. I think this is both good for people from the majority world, but it also means that it opens us up to being able to recognize the expertise of people from the West as well. So it's a very valuable conversation for Christians all over the world.
Yeah, it does sound very interesting. Let's go and listen to it.
Well, Joanna, it is a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Young Langham podcast. A new question that we're starting every conversation with on the podcast this season is, can you tell us a bit about what your favorite homemade dish to eat is where you're from in the Philippines?
Oh, my favorite dish is truly a Filipino dish because we have been influenced by Spain after having been colonized for 300 years and then by the United States by 100 years. But we still have this local food. It's called adobo. You might have encountered it. It can be chicken or pork. So everywhere I would be, I can cook our favorite Filipino dish, which is chicken or pork adobo.
Oh, that sounds really good. Did you have that a lot growing up?
I had it a lot because it has, one of the ingredients is vinegar. And the vinegar provides the preservative because we grew up without electricity. We grew up
Mm.
without refrigerator. So even if we're traveling by the ship, moving to Metro Manila, coming from the remote place where I grew up, so that would be our food to go to be provided by our mother because that will last at least 3 days.
Okay. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic. So tell me a bit about your background. How did God lead you toward academia? And what's been your experience working toward your PhD?
All right. So how God led me in my academic journey.
Mm.
I'm really amazed up to now, just looking back, because I think my desire for adventure
Mm.
and my desire to serve the Lord really was brought together. So I was in high school when I said I wanted to be a Bible teacher. So when I graduated, that was my aim. That's why at first I entered the university and then I entered the Bible school, basically to be a Bible teacher.
Wow.
But that provided an opportunity for me to be invited not only to teach in high school, but also to teach in the Bible college where I studied in Manila. So high school in the province of Palawan, Philippines, and Manila, my college, Bible college. And that means I said to myself, I need to have a master's degree.
Mm.
Just because, you're teaching in an undergraduate, I needed a master's degree. So I prayed for it and God opened the door and I ventured into it even when I didn't have money.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through my Master of Divinity at the Asian Theological Seminary while teaching in the Bible school. And interestingly enough, one of the professors in the Asian Theological Seminary said, Joanna, if you have one more higher degree, we can invite you to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I said, that's interesting. So I had a sister-in-law who just came from Regent College in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And she said to me, maybe you might want to consider a Regent. And so I started writing Regent before I graduated from my MDiv. And then I was married then, but I didn't have any child yet. And by the time that I graduated and Regent accepted me in the THM program, because at that time that was a requirement as a higher degree after MDiv, your Master of Theology. And I chose spirituality because at that time I was thinking, okay, beyond theology, I wanted to focus on spirituality. And Regent, at the time when I was reading through Regent and listening to some of those who have been to Regent, they were saying that's a specialization where Regent's actually promoting. And then I didn't know I was pregnant. So I said, okay, having a child is more important for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so thankfully, I simply said to Regent, can I defer?
Sure.
Defer my beginning. And so, but then my baby became quite sickly. And so I just decided to go without a scholarship. And so looking back, I was thinking, if I had to do that all over again, I don't think I would do it, when you're beginning to think of finances and all that sort. So I was given by Regent a 50% bursary, but the rest was up to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I did look for odd jobs where I will not be I will not be absent from my son too long, for my baby too long.
Yeah.
And then, so one of my pride was I cleaned the house of J.I. Packer.
Oh, wow.
I know. Before that, there was someone else from Malaysia, a student from Malaysia who was doing it.
Yes.
And I said to him, because you're finishing, please recommend me. Now, the advantage of house cleaning
Mm-hmm.
is you clean for a short time, but they give you that's a big pay per hour compared to my
Mm.
husband working at McDonald's. So
Oh,
that's how
wow.
I survived. That's how I
Yeah.
survived. And then I chose to work on the mystical pathways of two women mystics. And then I cried when I had to go home because I truly enjoyed Vancouver. So by
Mm.
that time, I was invited by ATS already to teach, right?
Yeah.
And then that was also the time when, after teaching theology, I started looking into to education. And I will share that later as I share why the alternative to dissertation had a positive effect in the way I look at education.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time when I was teaching theology, I was already beginning to think educationally. I was conscious of students in terms of how they respond to their studying and in terms of how I was teaching theology one. So it was the president of the seminary who asked me and said, Joanna, please consider PhD in education for your
Mm.
postgraduate, for your postgraduate. And so I started in a Catholic university in the Philippines here.
Mm-hmm.
And then another professor from TEDS, Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield, Illinois,
Mm.
or Trinity International University, said, Joanna, I want to refer you to the chair of the PhD Educational Studies at Trinity. Please continue your studies there. So that's the journey, the academic journey. That's totally, it's like God opened the door and I simply entered.
Yeah.
So about my long answer to your very short question, my journey to academia. So by the time I shifted from theology to education, I was ready.
Yeah, sure.
God prepared me for it already.
That's great. So tell me more, Vancouver, and you also study in the US. What kind
Mhm.
of cultural barriers did you experience in your time during your theological studies?
One of the cultural barriers that I experienced was I missed the community that I had in
Yeah.
Asia because it seems that studying at Trinity as well as at Regent, particularly at Regent, it's like I was staring at people and they say hi, but the moment you want to, they say, how are you? The moment you want to answer, they're gone.
Mm.
So it's like, was this person really asking me how I was? So I naturally bonded with people from the majority world because we
Mm.
think alike in terms of the desire for community, the desire for learning together. So that was a challenge at the very beginning
Yeah.
because you tend to observe and you don't know if the smiles of your classmates were actually sincere or not. You really didn't know that
Mm.
because there was something when I would smile with someone from Kenya. There was this kind of spark already, and then after class we will be talking, or someone from Japan, or someone from Korea, someone from Malaysia
Mm.
at that time. So that was quite one of the challenges. Another challenge was in the classroom. My Western classmates, they were very fast in engaging. They could easily, when a professor would provide a lecture
Mm-hmm.
and would open for discussion, they were so fast. So I was
Mm.
still writing my answer because I was not confident in my English, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to be clear in what I would say. So I did write. By the time I finished, the topic has changed.
Oh, no.
And so another challenge there would be the teachers who were not thinking educationally, not considering that in the class is a multicultural classroom,
Right.
and that for all of us, English is not our it's
Yeah.
not our first language. And so it's always to the advantage of those in the first world, actually, who could right away speak and be confident in the language. So that was the same experience I had when I was doing my PhD. Another barrier, not really a barrier, was I commented about faculty members not being aware of our cultural context and whether are they really interested. You try to inject because when we speak, we bring our experience with us.
Hmm.
We do not speak in a vacuum. In any topic, theology, education, spirituality, you bring your context with you because that's how you are making meaning, especially when you are encountering new topics, new knowledge. But there was not so much on picking up what you have said and asking more questions about it, right?
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like a feeling of quite being ignored. So, but I truly appreciated some of my professors when I was in the PhD program because I had classmates, colleagues who, especially there was someone I was very close with from Korea. I know she's very smart, but she's really finding it very hard to express herself.
Hmm.
But I saw the professor what she did to be able to help my friend be able to express herself and be able to be understood and to contribute in the discussion. But that was the skill of the teacher.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so when you open a hospitable space for dialogue, the teacher has a big responsibility to welcome everyone and to consider the limitations we have, especially us from the majority world.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you find that a lot of these theological lecturers are from a position of knowing, from having a lot of background in studying the Bible or studying theology or theologians, but they're really not. They really don't have a background in education, and that's a whole skill set in and of itself, isn't it?
That's very true. And it's sadly, because theological education puts this knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge as primary,
Mm.
but not necessarily in how do you teach, right?
Yes,
How do you
yes.
do it? Because when you finish your PhD program, you're sure going to teach. But you are
Yes, that's
good,
right.
but you're not provided at least that framework, that mental framework, that you wanted to make an impact. So it's not about the teacher. It's not even about your research. It's not even about what you have written.
Yeah.
About, are my students getting it, or are my students navigating what I'm trying to tell them? And are the students contributing to the discussion? So much of those that I have encountered, especially in the disciplines of biblical studies and theology, they were always so protective of their content, This is my
Mm.
content. It's very important. So let me finish my lesson.
Yep.
Students will just be quiet and taking notes, right? Remember, those notes will not mean anything and they will be forgotten.
Mm. Mm.
So the question of how do you teach and how do you do impactful learning is quite critical.
Yes. Yes. That's very important. Thank you.
That's huge.
I'll be thinking about that for a while after this. So let's move on to the portfolio model. In the book Challenging Tradition, you posit the concept of a portfolio as a new form of legitimate dissertation for theological students. Tell me what drew you to that idea?
Okay, so the portfolio actually, in a sense, when you think of an alternative to dissertation, you you imagine how it will be if there's an alternative to dissertation, because theological education has thrived in the academic pursuit. It's totally academic, right? I've been through that too when I wrote both my thesis at Regent College and my dissertation at Trinity. But at the time when Perry Shaw asked me to consider to do some research and writing on alternative to dissertation, as I shared earlier, my teaching in the seminary has already provided me with some educational questions and already challenging me to define what is impactful learning. So one particular experience of a teacher that has learned from a student that has impacted me and has helped me and shifted my way of thinking was when I was teaching Theology 1, and there was this Chinese student. Now, when the Theology 1 I was teaching was particularly copied from my previous theology teachers. You simply copied them. You didn't know how to teach, right? You simply copied and model how your teachers modeled it. So one of the assessment of learning was actually in Theology 1 was for your students to be able to articulate their statement of faith. So that was part of the requirements, articulate in writing the statement of faith and share it in class. Okay. So many students started doing it in my class, but there was this one Chinese lady who came to me and said, "Mom, can I do a different approach to it? Can I just bring my paintings?" And I stared at her and I said to myself, she has the audacity to do that, right? The teacher's the authority. It's like you challenged me, right? Thankfully, I did not say anything. I said to her, "Can I think about it?" So I thought about it when I was riding the jeepney, going back to my place. And I started thinking, articulation of your statement of faith. Could it be in a different format? Could it be more creative than simply writing? So those questions started to pop in my mind. And I said to myself, I haven't really seen how it will be done, right? Differently from the usual assessment rubric. So I allowed her, and she brought her paintings the next day. And mind you, the whole class was silent. I think the personal nature of that statement of faith, because she shared how God communicated to her through her paintings and how she communicated to God through her paintings, how God prepared her for the death of her mother through painting, through the painting. So it's really very personal. That's one that's overarching for me, as well as we were all focused, riveted. And it's like it was a fragile moment, and it's like a holy ground. I said to myself, why is it that I have dwelt so long in the boring presentation and have not allowed this one? So that's why I cannot forget her. She's back in China already. She challenged me. She taught me. And so by the time I started looking into the portfolio, my mind was excited. I said, wow, this must be a way to work on a dissertation that is not just the boring, the rigid type. But it will have color. It will have flexibility. And of course, I have read also several writings giving a critique of the traditional way of doing dissertation, because it's not really communicating to the church. It's simply communicating to a few members of your committee, right? Those reading it. And once your dissertation is in the library, nobody's reading it. It will just get dust, right? And I remember a friend of mine did a dissertation, Old Testament. She's really good. She did it in the UK. she studied only one word, and it is 600 pages of one Hebrew word, 600 pages of dissertation. So we clapped our hands,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody opened it.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, so now the question, all these questions of relevance, all these questions of, are you communicating it? So when I started looking into the portfolio, I saw how it's really be outside of the box of the
Mm-hmm.
traditional dissertation. And can we still, my question was, if the traditional dissertation aims for high levels of thinking skills and for your competency and skills, development of the skills in research, can that still be part of the whole portfolio? Yes, it is going to be. It's still part of the portfolio. But the portfolio then has a different way of drawing the readers because of its more personal nature and because of the relevance and the flexibility it offers.
Mm. That's a lot to think about, because that's really important. If the whole point of a PhD is to add to the whole sum of knowledge that we have on a certain topic, you want people to be able to access that, and you don't want it just to be in the conversation of the sort of esoteric academic life.
Or your, yeah. And more the formalities, right? All
Right,
the formalities.
yes.
In some countries, when they defend the dissertation, they're even wearing their togas, right? And professors also wore it. That's how formal it is.
Yes.
But when I did my research, I was so surprised because in the West, so many universities are already changing, especially in Europe, especially in the area of, let's say, nursing, technology. So the changes were quite really outside of the box of the way the presentation of the dissertation is being given. So even in the presentation only, right, you have this heavy research done and you satisfied all the requirements. But I was so surprised that in the presentation, it can be like a movie clip. It can be in a different way that is more appealing, especially to the younger generation.
So tell me, in your article, you posit two models for what the portfolio might look like. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
All right. So still, I believe, maintaining the high degree of your ability to do research and your higher levels of thinking skills. But something that is being added in the portfolio is your ability to integrate, your ability to be interdisciplinary, and your ability to focus on the application, right? So there are two models actually so the first model is they call the artifact model. So this is closer to the traditional dissertation because it's like a skyscraper. You have one main research question, but the way you approach the main research question can be varied, can be flexible. You can have, they call artifacts or evidence, can be your literature research is one artifact, but you're not limited to that. If you're interviewing people about your particular topic, just getting to understand how they see the topic, that can be part of the portfolio, because a portfolio is a collection, right? It's a collection of experiences, collection of literature, sources, collection of videos, collection of previous writings, collection of anything that really speaks to your main research question, because the main research question is the integrative thread that runs through the whole portfolio, except that your portfolio has flexibility in the way you present your research and the way you present your data. So whereas in the traditional dissertation, you have only one way, right? So this one can have so many chapters. It doesn't matter. It does it it enriches, let's say, the literature research. You have ways by which it can be enriched, and the data gathering can be different. It can be, especially if you're interviewing children. What would you do so that you can get a richer data? Then ask them to paint.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, hello, there are ways by which you can gather data by not necessarily, interviewing and not necessarily taking down notes. Because when you're asking them to do artwork, or if they can write a poem, if they can write a music, let's say, for example, you want to, if this is in the applied theology dissertation, you want to look at how the children of Ukraine are actually responding to what they're experiencing. You can use many methods of drawing data, not just in one way. So that's the reality. So even if it is a skyscraper model where you are aiming to provide answers to your main research question, but the way you are gathering data and the way you are presenting data could be different, could be more appealing, could be more relevant, could be more cutting edge, could be more creative. And yet you're saying thing, yeah, and then your voice is actually there. And of course, the implications, the application, the interdisciplinary connectivity of your research, not only in the specific field that you're working in, but it's connected to other fields, because that's what knowledge is all about anyway. Knowledge is highly integrated. It cannot just be a purely exegetical work. Hello, right? It has to have connections, because our life, I mean, it's just amazing if you look at scripture and the way theology is being articulated through the lives, through the voices of the characters in the story.
Right.
It's just, there's just in so many ways. So why does it have to be in one way, right? And why do you have to be strict about all the formatting and etc.? So I'm not just into it. So that's the first model. And so I believe this model can be applied even in theology.
Right.
Especially theology. Biblical studies has to tweak a bit in relation to interdisciplinary connectivity, as well as to its how will you make it relevant for the church? Why does it have to be in this format? Can you write in a language that the church can understand? So those can be some of the implications of your portfolio. And especially the so what question. How will my church benefit from my research, right? If we are aiming to serve the mission of God, I mean, it's not just for a few people. So that's one. So the other one is called the temple model, the Greek temple model, which has a lot of columns. So again, there's one integrative thread, and that could be a broad topic. And so for me, I think this is very useful in education, in counseling, in the demon program. Because it's, let's say in the demon program, you wish to address the issue of church planting in the context, let's say, of the Philippines, or in the context of other Asian countries, right? Specific to a context. So that's your broad topic. But the broad topic will have columns in it, which you can have 3 research questions out of that broad topic.
Okay.
So it's more horizontal rather than vertical, right? So it's more horizontal. And so there is a lot of freedom. And because it is in both portfolios, they require, I mean, according to some, the disadvantage, a lot of work. Well, it's a lot of work if you do it towards the end of your program. The ideal is at the very start of your program, you already have a topic that you want to research on. So one of the examples that I gave is related to my experience. I didn't know that I will be academic dean. So I wish was my dissertation was on what is expected of the academic dean in the Southeast Asia context. And so that becomes my big topic, right? And then you can have your several topics, research questions. But what's inside in terms of your multiple data gathering, multiple literature research will be looking at situations in schools in Asia, attending maybe a seminar or the dean's seminar, attending it and listening to the deans, and maybe engaging in a shadowing experience. Those can be part of your portfolio that spells out the particular broad topic of the work of the academic leader in theological institution. So there's also the opportunity for you to participate in those organizations that conduct strategic planning for seminaries. You can participate and be part of it and gain some experience. I believe that your dissertation should prepare you to equip you more in your vocation.
Yes.
So just focusing on the knowledge content but it's really on, yes, expanding your knowledge, but it also means that you will have lots more of questions. Because, I mean, knowledge is continually evolving, right?
Right.
As the context is changing, the ministry challenges are changing, your students are changing, the people around you are changing. And so there should be a lot of consideration to the ministry that you will be after your PhD. So that's why that brings me so much excitement, because then the interest in looking at all of these pieces and for you to be able to name what are the implications at the end, how do you apply, and then especially in how do you bring to the church even if your topic is academic leader, because there are Christian administrators in churches.
Yes.
So there's so much that you can do. That's what I like about the temple model. So much of the flexibility, so much of the voice, my voice and the voices of the others.
Yeah.
And so much ways by which you are drawing data.
That's fantastic. It sounds like you're democratizing knowledge a little bit, like you're bringing it to the people.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
That's really the purpose.
Yeah.
That's really the purpose, right? So even until now, I will be honest with you. I don't read heavy stuff. I'm not interested, actually. So that's why I appreciated even N.T. Wright, his podcast, because he's using the common language. He's putting heavy stuff in ways that the younger generation, even us, can understand and appreciate, right? Yeah. So things are changing, times are changing, but how can you be cutting edge even in your dissertation? So, yeah, why does it have to be the traditional Western way? That's just my big question.
That's fantastic. That's a lot to think about.
It's a lot to think about.
So I can imagine there might still be some, I'm convinced, but I imagine there might be some critics out there who might be hesitant to see portfolio as a legitimate method for theological students to earn their PhDs, whether that's because they think of, oh gosh, painting, that's too easy, or, that, like thoughts along those lines. What would you say in response to that?
Well, I would say, because I still encounter the people who are quite hesitant to even open the door for thinking differently or just thinking out of the box. It's like, And that goes with theological education too. I mean, I think Linda Cannell already wrote on how in theological education, it's very hard to move for change, right?
Hmm.
It's because it's like you inherited something that's inerrant, including the curriculum
Mm.
and ways we do things, right? But we are in Asia, and we are more and more confronted with the new generation of thinkers, technology, and many all sorts. And why not use this technology, actually, the richness of the technology when it comes to your project? And so I think for me, the question is, what does it mean to be a scholar? Really, what does it
Mm.
mean to be a scholar? Does it mean only that I discover knowledge,
Mm.
expand it, argue for it, prove it? This is a new thing, you're discovering new thing. And usually that's what dissertation is. You are presenting something new and you are pushing for it, you're arguing for it. But to be a scholar is more than that. Scholarship also means the work that you do has shown integration
Hmm.
to the other disciplines, as well as to your life, as well as to the community that you're serving. And of course, it means also application. It also means if you were going to communicate it, how will you communicate something that is wonderful, beautiful, that you discovered as a scholar that many can understand?
Mm.
So the
Yeah.
whole scholarship should be seen as more than the discovery and the traditional presentation of knowledge. But it should be more than that. If the seminary, if theological education exists for the church, that even your dissertation, your scholarship, your research should be able to work or serve the church, especially the mission of God.
Mm. That's a really helpful way of thinking about it. I think there's been issues with academia in the past where we really think of it as this liberalizing force that pushes you away from the church, whereas it should be part of our strengths, and it has been in the past. So I think that's really helpful. So the major point of the podcast is to hear voices like yours from outside the West, and so that we can look back and see some of our weaknesses from a distance. And I certainly think the current model of dissertation as a research paper is a Western model imposed on the rest of the world. So as a majority world academic, what do you see as the weaknesses of the research paper model of dissertation that we impose right now?
I think we are in Asia.
Mm.
We serve Asians. And even if we are studying in the West, for those studying in the West and working on a dissertation, it would still be good to think of the way by which the research that you will do will truly speak to the church. So the problem with the Western model and even the Western ways of assessment, learning assessment, it's very much defined by the West.
Mm.
So I can only pass my dissertation if I do this. So I remember when I was doing my dissertation, I kept on asking the question, why? Why should it be this way? Why should it be that way? And my colleague was telling me, Joanna, just accept it. It's that way. All right. So, but for me, it's just saying, if I do it in a different way, because we Asians think differently,
Mm-hmm.
it's not acceptable. It has to be the Western way. So I think
Sure.
that's the major problem with the Western rubrics or standards of assessment. Because you measure our learning, measure our ways of according to your ways of thinking. So we don't really think in that straight linear way. And I think that's That's why I struggled in systematic theology. I found it too abstract. It's abstract, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I could not relate it to my experience because it's just too dead, too abstract, the propositions. And oftentimes that's the language of your studies, of your papers. It's too formal.
Mm-hmm.
But why? But why? So it's the Western rubric of assessment of learning. So the emphasis is the assessment of learning so that you can receive a degree at the end.
Right.
Whereas if the shift is now assessment for learning, which is a big difference, so that means you are more concerned with the process of learning that promotes lifelong and life-wide learning so that it prepares you beyond your dissertation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that the Western rubric, particularly in the area of writing dissertation, is just too exact.
Mm.
So even in the classroom, I question the assessment rubric that requires students to write research papers, right? So paper is very important because you want to see the competency, the skills of thinking, the skills of critical reflection to be there. All right. So, but is that the only way that you can look at it?
Mm-hmm.
And how many research papers do a student need to be able to prove that this person has already have the competencies and the skills needed in higher order thinking skills? So for me, even in the assessment of learning, there has to be flexibility because learning is not just one way.
Yes.
Learning has many facets. It's just exciting if we begin to open possibilities for our students to engage in learning and to discover their learning preferences and be able to thrive. What we are actually after is impactful learning.
Mm-hmm.
So the again, I mean, I think when we think of the Western rubrics, it's just too tight.
Mm.
There's no flexibility, and often the emphasis more is not in the process of learning, but in the content that is static. I mean, this is it. I have proven something. Yeah.
And I think that that's fantastic because it really will just serve to bring a richer experience for everyone. You know, even in a classroom where all of the people are Western, you're going to have a big diversity of ways that people think. And in a lot of our academic models at the moment, we just select out people who could be very clever and have great, you know, excellent ideas to add to the conversation, but they've been selected out because of the way that they think. And I think that's a shame. Yeah. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So if you had one thing to tell young Christians here in the West, especially those seeking higher theological education, what do you think it would be?
I think for them, I would say, because we are passing the baton to them, right? We who have done the ministry of teaching and leading, we are not here forever. We are passing the baton. And so my encouragement for them is really to enjoy learning and be creative, find ways by which the whole creativity of God can also be translated in the way they do their research, in the way they present their research. And the most important thing is for them to grow in their relationship with God in all its richness, even when studying theology, biblical studies, and all these sorts. And at the same time, to bring the younger generation to truly appreciate what they are learning. You know, Why is it important for higher education? There has to be a spark of joy in learning so that the
Yes.
younger generation can see that even if you're pursuing a PhD, it's not something that's boring,
Yeah.
but it's something exciting. It's something that you are clearly passing on also to the next generation. But you want them to be engaged too. And so how nice it would be if you will not stay in the library the whole time. You would be in your churches, in your small groups, and begin bouncing back your ideas and have the perspective that you can learn from your community, just from your teachers, and your community can contribute to your learning. We are a community of learners. It's just that you have the opportunity to be in an academic setting. But whatever it is that you're learning, share it and learn how to present it. Learn from the community how you can make an impact when you have these new learning with you. If you're learning exegesis, if you're learning research, so how will that benefit your group? Share. And I think that's my dream, actually. And that's why I am passionate for my students to think about how they can make a difference in the lives of the people that they're serving.
That's fantastic. And it sounds like a exciting way forward if we can see it happen. Yeah.
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 Especially with technology, right?
Right.
There's so much that you can do with technology already. Yeah. And that's my Waterloo. I mean, I'm trying to learn. And so I really entrust thinking creatively, cutting edge research and presentations, especially to the younger generation.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. That's all been a lot to think about. Really appreciate speaking to you today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Simon.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure. So, Edgar, after hearing that conversation, tell me, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic, and I think it really challenges this conservative or just traditional way of doing theological education. And Joanna's approach, she just uses the fact that people think in different ways. Not everyone think and do things in the same way. And I think that her approach acknowledges that. And it's true, when we have a particular syllabus or program for theological education, there are some people that doesn't think that in the same way. So we miss out on this broader way of thinking and people with different talents and different approaches that we just don't get to see and listen to because we have this narrow approach.
Yeah, I think for people who might still be skeptical, the important thing to remember is that this isn't functioning by lowering the bar to achieve expertise in a particular topic. What it's doing is actually broadening our ability to find and recognize true experts on a theological topic. And so one still has to be an expert in order to do these portfolios. But it means that people from all sorts of backgrounds and ability levels can be recognized for their PhD, recognized for their expertise rather. And so then we can start to broaden the voices within the theological world and within academia as a whole. So I really think that this can only make the conversation more rich in the future.
For sure.
So work like this and conversations like this cannot happen without the support of generous people like you. Langham needs the resources to continue to support people like Joanna. And so if you feel so inclined, please consider donating at au.langham.org/donate.
And please leave us a review. That really will help the podcast to get the word out for other people to hear about us. And share the episode with someone you think they might enjoy the episode. And thank you again for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.